Amazing revelation. Millionaire discovers fiancé torn apart, his daughter's drawing her hidden. Tony stood in the bright kitchen, sunlight streaming through the large windows, illuminating the vibrant hues of a child's drawing. The proud smile on his face reflected an immeasurable joy that filled the air, a moment stripped of the burdens of his life as a self-made millionaire. His daughter Mia, with wide, innocent eyes, presented her colorful depiction of their family by a shimmering lake. It was adorned with glitter and heart shapes. Every stroke of her crayon echoed her unfiltered love. Suddenly, the backdrop of warmth shattered as he felt the tension flicker at the edge of bliss. An unsettling thought gripped him. Amelia was alone in their bedroom. He could always sense when something was amiss. There she was, the woman who shared his life but not his artistry, ensnared in a struggle that Tony could only glimpse through the cracks of their relationship. He recalled how, despite his success, each letter of his childhood dreams and art was drowned under the weight of survival, buried by the pressures of wealth. Was Mia's drawing a reminder of what might have been for both him and Amelia? As he admired the piece, he felt a pang of anxiety surge through him. "Amelia," he called out, his voice a delicate blend of concern and authority. The dread that enveloped him was born from the knowledge of their respective pasts, the gnawing insecurities that drove wedges between aspiration and reality. Amelia, with her own dreams floundering beneath layers of envy, seemed distant, her talent suffocated by the shackles of her upbringing. He had attempted to uplift her, to open doors to a world of art she'd been denied, but the jealousy was a dark undercurrent that swirled around them, tightening like a noose with each passing day. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let us continue. He pushed open the door. The sight of Amelia, her hands buried deep into the paper, tearing apart Mia's cherished artwork, froze his heart. Shockwaves coursed through him. Her rage was palpable, yet intertwined with distress. "Amelia, stop!" The plea escaped his lips, his voice shaking with disbelief. Anger collided with his instincts as he confronted her. This was no longer about the drawing. It was about the fractured ground they stood on, resonating with his daughter's fragile heart. "This isn't just a drawing, Amelia. It's Mia's heart." Tony's chest heaved, his frustration rising, but it was compassion that steered his tone. How could she ever understand the innocent joy that flickered behind those colorful strokes? Observing her face contorted with turmoil and regret, the very fire of her jealousy illuminating the depths of her pain, he realized the challenge was far more complex than he'd imagined. As Mia's laughter faded beyond the threshold, Tony felt the world close in around them, an invisible barrier defining who they were and who they could never be. Vulnerability flared like exposed wounds. Two chaotic histories fought for dominance. He longed to bridge the rift with words, with love, but how could one navigate through the labyrinth of unresolved feelings when every attempt felt both urgent and futile? "What am I supposed to do?" he thought frantically, his heartbeat echoing loudly in the silence thick with peril. They stood amidst shards of creativity and broken trust, the unanswerable questions of the future pressing down hard. He wiped his brow, knowing their family was hanging by a thread. Could Amelia be inspired, or would she further isolate herself? As darkness enshrouded their sunny kitchen, Tony felt the walls close in tight. And just as the silence threatened to suffocate them, Mia's soft voice echoed from the hallway. "Can we keep drawing together?" Uncertainty hung in the air, completing the fragile tableau of their lives as Tony braced for whatever tumult came next. Tony stood at the threshold of the bedroom, the chaotic tableau of his life unfolding before him. Like shards of glass reflecting a jagged reality, the remnants of Mia's drawing littered the floor. Amelia's anguished expression ignited a torrent of emotions: frustration, sadness, and a raw, aching desire to heal. The conflict erupted silently, yet it echoed thunderously within the confines of his heart. He took a hesitant step forward, measuring the distance between them. Amelia, can we talk? His voice wavered. He sought connection but feared rejection. She didn't reply, the physical and emotional chasm between them widening with every fleeting moment. He witnessed her hands, once graceful, transform into weapons of destruction, caught in an invisible struggle fueled by painful inadequacies. I'm not asking you to love everything Mia does, he began, the urgency in his tone thickening. But you need to acknowledge how much this means to her. You need to understand that her art is a reflection of her spirit, not a competition. The words tumbled out, an improvised plea wrapped in genuine concern. Silence reignited, heavier than before, stifling. Why can't you see it? Amelia's voice was trembling, a relentless undercurrent of despair threading her words. You don't know how hard it is for me. You are so successful, and I'm just lost. Her tone cracked, revealing the vulnerability beneath her anger. Those words pierced Tony, exposing invisible wounds he thought sealed. What was he to do with her baggage? The realization surged within him, a moment of clarity amid chaos. He longed for Amelia to see the potential she possessed, buried beneath years of neglect and self-doubt. You're not lost, Amelia. You have talent, and I want to support you, help you find that creative spark again. The risk was palpable. Offering hope was a double-edged sword. He might face rejection again, but the only way forward involved vulnerability. Amelia's eyes glistened with unshed tears, flickers of hope momentarily overshadowing her despair. How can I trust you? She challenged, a hint of defiance coating her vulnerability. Start with art. We'll work on it together, one piece at a time. His heart raced at the thought of what stood on the line. This could either ignite a reconciliation or deepen their division. Every doubt loomed large, yet something within him pushed forward like a fire igniting beneath the ashes. She shifted slowly. Tony wrestled with the torrent of insecurities that echoed her doubts. He needed to show her that their paths didn't need to diverge. They could merge into something beautiful. Let us have a drawing session with Mia. We can create together. It'll all be fun. Her gaze met his, hesitance lacing her features. The walls they built over the years felt unbreakable, yet inside, a faint flicker of desire to try held its ground. I don't know if I can create like I used to, she whispered, vulnerability nudging aside her doubt. Let me help you find the path. It's okay to start small. Offering a hand, he gave her something tangible, an anchor to grasp. Amelia stared at his outstretched palm, the weight of the moment pulsing through them. The kitchen, once a battlefield, hummed with a tentative potential, a hint of colors waiting to unfold. Will you try? He urged, breath catching softly in his throat. Grappling within, Amelia eventually raised her hand, her fingers brushing against his. Just as hope rippled in the air, a sharp knock on the door shattered the intimate cocoon they had begun to weave. Dad, are you okay? Mia's innocent voice broke through the tense atmosphere, intertwining their new resolve with the reality of familial presence. Tony glanced at Amelia, a question lingering in the charged space between them. Would this moment usher in transformation, or would they spiral deeper into the tumult of their past? In that instance, Tony felt the gravity of an impending choice overshadow his growing determination. Could he seize the opportunity to redefine their future? Or would the moment slip through his fingers, lost to fear once more? He took a breath, affirming his resolve to stand firm as the door opened, revealing Mia, full of curiosity and love, the greatest catalyst of change he could hope for. Amelia blinked, her hand still hovering in the air as she processed Mia's presence. The innocence of the child felt like a buoy in stormy waters, momentarily lightening the heavy atmosphere that had surrounded them. Tony's heart raced as he shifted his focus from Amelia to Mia, conscious that their family dynamics were at a tipping point. Mia, honey, we were just talking, Tony said, forcing a smile, but a knot twisted in his stomach. The innocence of a child often brought clarity, yet the pressure to keep peace simmered dangerously close to boiling over. Can we draw together? Mia's eyes sparkled, eager to distract from the unspoken tension. I want to make another picture of you and Mom. The words hung in the air like a fragile promise, pulling at the frayed edges of Tony and Amelia's connection. He caught Amelia's gaze again, and for a moment, he saw a flicker of nostalgia, the shared joy of creativity they once knew. Of course, he said warmly, releasing the tension that had coiled in his chest. Let us do it all together. Amelia hesitated. I don't know if I'll be any good. What if I mess up? What if? Start small, he reminded her, mirroring his earlier words. It's about having fun, creating something together with Mia. No one else keeping score. The rustle of paper and crayons summoned childhood memories, and soon Mia was bouncing in excitement, pulling her mother toward the table where the last remnants of Mia's previous drawing lay scattered as they settled into the chairs around the table. A mixture of trepidation and anticipation filled the air. Tony watched closely as Amelia absently stared at the blank paper, the weight of her inner doubts almost palpable. Could he break through the barriers she'd built? Just imagine it, he encouraged, his voice a mix of sincerity and determination. Last time, you drew the sun glowing above us. What if you drew it a little differently this time? What if there were clouds that hugged it tight? Let your imagination run free. Amelia took a deep, shaky breath, her brow furrowing as she attempted to visualize her thoughts. Tony leaned over, sketching a small round sun with broad strokes. The act felt cathartic, a gesture that communicated his unwavering support as he sealed together fragments of their existence over shared experiences. See, I'm just drawing like a kid, he laughed to ease the tension. And while we do this, you can think about what you want to add. Amelia's fingers tentatively picked up a green crayon, slowly tracing a line alongside his drawing. There was no instruction, only the sound of their softened breaths and the gentle scratch of crayon against paper. Tony's mind flashed with memories of happier days, illuminating the darkness that had clouded their home. It returned a sense of normalcy he so desperately longed for. Mia glanced from one parent to the other, her joy bursting to the surface. You guys are making it feel real. Amelia's lips curved ever so slightly, the corners rising like the sun they were reviving. As she instructed Mia on how to fill in the vast blue sky, Tony's heart swelled with a lesson in resilience. But as the colors began to take form, doubt crept back into the recesses of Amelia's eyes. What if I can't keep this up? You're not alone in this, Tony said, determination surfacing within him. We are re-establishing faded memories, and it's a journey we'll take together. With each line drawn, the bond they were forging felt fragile yet powerful. They were testing the waters, but the foundation of trust remained shaky beneath them. The weight of the past still lingered, forcing Tony to contemplate what they were willing to risk for this moment. Just then, amid shared laughter that transcended the unspoken rift, the door swung open again, this time revealing the unexpected arrival of Tony's business partner, Angela. The poised yet assertive woman always seemed to appear at the most inconvenient times, her presence an unacceptable reminder of commitments that loomed outside the domestic sanctuary they were creating. Hey, Tony, sorry to interrupt, but we need to discuss the project deadlines. She trailed off, noticing the artistic scene unfolding before her, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of the office. Tony felt a surge of impatience rush through him. This was not just a struggle to reignite a love lost. It now included navigating the conflicting demands of work and family. He needed to decide if he would prioritize this burgeoning connection over the professional obligations that could just as easily be completed later. As his resolve wavered beneath the weight of reality, the stakes became clear. Was he ready to confront the often fractured balance between personal aspirations and professional obligations? With Amelia's gaze imploring him for commitment, an unspoken choice hovered before him, challenging the fragile beginnings of healing and connection. Would he stand firm, or would he allow the pressures of the outside world to fracture the fragile peace they had tentatively begun to craft? Tony's mind whirled. Angela's presence was like a lightning bolt in their quiet storm, illuminating the frayed edges of his reality. Can you give us a minute? He said, the words escaping before he could fully process them. Amelia looked up, surprised, her brow knitting slightly as he turned back to Angela, who blinked in mild astonishment. Fine, but this is urgent. I can't hold them off forever, Angela said, her tone clipped, her impatience palpable. As she closed the door behind her, the room seemed to inhale its peace again. But the air still crackled with tension, and the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Tony shifted his attention back to Mia and Amelia, each of them wrapped in their creative embrace. The crayons lay scattered between them, a vivid spectrum of emotions that mirrored both joy and uncertainty. Amelia glanced at Tony, an unspoken question dancing behind her eyes. It was a plea for reassurance, a bridge toward reconnection. "Everything okay?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with the vulnerability that he now recognized was a part of her. Tony swallowed hard, aware that this moment was more significant than just art on paper. "I'm realizing how easy it is to get lost in what's outside, in the noise. But I don't want to lose this," he admitted with a raw honesty that settled like a weight in the air. "Then don't," Amelia replied, determination weaving through her words. "It's not just you who's juggling things. I've been trying to find my way back, too. Every day feels like an uphill battle." The admission hung precariously between them, a fragile truth that both of them had been sidestepping. "Then let us confront it together," he declared, his resolve solidifying. He had to prioritize them, not just in words but in action. This was the moment to dismantle the barriers that had risen silently between them. Mia chirped excitedly, "Look, I drew a rainbow," and pointed to her creation. Its colors burst vibrantly across the page, naive in its simplicity, yet carrying the weight of deeper meaning. It struck Tony as a metaphor for what they were threading together, a promise of beauty amid the complexities of life. "That is amazing, sweetheart. Just like life, we need to find the colors, even when it feels gray," he said, turning to Amelia to share the smile that was slowly reshaping their reality. Amelia's eyes softened, but then an undercurrent of concern flickered there. "But what if the rainbow fades? What if I can't keep the colors bright? Or if something happens and we go back to how it was? Then we'll just have to keep drawing," he said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty lingering in the back of his mind. "We'll find our way back to those moments. You can't erase the colors once they're there. They become part of the picture." The walls felt too close, constraining the dialogue, but with every shared word, they were slightly widening the space. It wasn't just about the drawing. It was about reclaiming their story, one brushstroke at a time. Could it really be that simple? Amelia asked quietly. Tony paused. Perhaps it wasn't simple at all, but they had started to carve out a safe space to explore these vital questions. The looming distractions from the outside world felt like shadows, but together they began to cast a different light. As the shadows flickered, a new idea washed over him, something that ignited a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. What if he challenged himself to carve out boundaries both at home and in business? "Let us make a pact. If we can set aside this time for us, I can set boundaries at work. I won't let it bleed into our family moments anymore." Amelia looked up, their eyes locking. "And will you be okay with that?" The question wrapped around him, a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Personal and professional lives were dangerously intertwined. "I have to be," he replied, feeling the stakes elevate. What he didn't know was that this reckoning was going to require more than just a shift in priorities. He worked through the implications in his mind. The door opened again, this time more forcefully, causing Amelia to flinch. Angela stepped back into the room, tension spilling over as she unleashed a torrent of updates and deadlines. "Tony, we're running out of time. This whole project could fall apart without immediate attention," and the words blurred into a cacophony, merging with the uncertainty that had brought them to this point. Amelia's expression shifted, the hope wavering in light of external demands. Tony's heart raced, the intimacy of the moment teetering on the edge of disintegration. Could he really seize this moment before it slipped through his fingers? As the playful beckoning of Mia faded into the background, he realized the answer transcended commitment. It was about redefining the very core of who he was willing to be, not just as a businessman or a father, but as a partner trying to mend a fractured connection. "Angela, can we reschedule?" he interjected, punctuating the chaos with his decision. He felt the ground shift beneath him, a bold declaration in the face of impending chaos. Amelia's eyes widened, a spark of hope igniting. But would it be enough to finally breathe life back into their relationship? As Angela's surprised gaze pierced through the fragile ambience, the uncertainty hung heavier than ever. The immediate future now loomed larger than he had anticipated, as did the impending confrontation between the divergent paths he had to choose. Just as he sensed the possibilities sharpening into focus, a chilling thought settled deep in his gut. What would the consequences of this choice mean for their family? With his heart pounding, He braced himself for what was to come, knowing he would have to face not only Angela, but perhaps the retreating echoes of his own doubts. The air in the room quickly lost its warmth, leaving a chill in the wake of Tony's words. Angela's expression, a mixture of surprise and annoyance, settled heavily over the space. For a fleeting second, he saw a flicker of respect, a glimmer of understanding that perhaps this wasn't just some trivial matter of business. It was undeniably personal, yet merging both realms in a way he had never before dared to attempt. Reschedule? Angela echoed, her disbelief palpable. Tony, this is a critical moment. We have so much riding on this project, and you want to put it on hold for, what? Family time? Her tone reinforced the reality he had tried to escape, one where business reigned supreme and personal life felt like an unwelcome distraction. Exactly that, he asserted, surprising even himself with the conviction that colored his words. Firmness poured from his core, urging him to stay grounded. Facing Angela's scrutiny, he felt embarrassed yet profoundly aware of how often he had allowed work to eclipse the vitality of his home life. Amelia's anxiety mirrored Tony's uncertainty as the tension swelled between the three of them. For a heartbeat, he felt a riptide of doubt, as if the gravity of the decision would pull him back into a complacent existence. But the truth was becoming clear: the toxicity of neglect had poisoned too much already. Tony, Angela pressed, her voice slicing through the tension. If you leave me hanging now, we could lose everything. This isn't just about you anymore. You think a few hours will save this project? Her frustration ignited a flame of insecurity in Tony. Perhaps she was right. He needed the income, the success. But at what cost? A flicker of movement caught his eye, and he turned to Mia, who remained blissfully absorbed in her masterpiece. In that moment, the gravity of Angela's words faded against the backdrop of his daughter's joyous expression. The bond he shared with Amelia and Mia illuminated the dull ache of work-life imbalance, urging him to think outside of what past decisions had done to his family dynamics. Let us think this through together, he proposed, turning to Amelia. I can ask for an extension. We need to find a way to ensure that this doesn't disrupt what we started here. He hesitated. Hope flooded him and double-dared him to believe it was possible. But what if that jeopardizes the entire project? Angela interrupted, her impatience palpable as she clamped down on her pent-up exasperation. Tony held his breath, considering the wall of expectations grounded on his shoulders, yet the realization began to settle within him. He could do this. He had grown too accustomed to acquiescing. It was time to redefine what compromise meant, no longer a surrendering of self, but a negotiation rooted in mutual respect. Angela, he began, deliberately softening his approach, what if we strategize? I could stay late tonight and break down everything you need. Just give me the essentials, and let us regroup tomorrow. We can make this work. He could see a slight twitch in her expression. The gears were turning. Perhaps she was conflicted, possibly even impressed by his willingness to assess both work and life as equally vital. The moment hung there, thick with possibility. Amelia's gaze shifted from him to Angela, anticipation mingling with anxiety. Just as their worlds seemed to pivot towards a harmonious convergence, Angela flashed a smirk, a testament to her hardened resolve. Fine, but this isn't a simple task. The work doesn't stop waiting for you to reclaim what you've pushed aside. Tony nodded, resolutely adamant, but he fought down the bitterness in his gut. Against the fast-moving clock of professional duties, he felt a spark of defiance kindling inside. He wouldn't awaken tomorrow as the same man set in a cycle of neglect. As Angela exited, leaving behind the heavy weight of her unresolved demands. An unexpected silence engulfed the room. Tony turned to Amelia, eyes locking in unspoken understanding. This time matters. We'll make it matter. A new resolve surged through him, flooding the air around them with a sense of clarity. In reclaiming this time for his family, he had also unearthed a flickering belief that he might navigate these contrasting pressures with integrity. Just as excitement trickled into the atmosphere, a sharp ping of apprehension interrupted his thoughts. How would his firm respond to this uncharacteristic break in dedication? What might ripple out from this choice? Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself. While he was forging these new boundaries at home, a confrontation with his own latent fears lay simmering just beneath. Would he rise to the occasion? or shatter under the pressure. Only the dawn would reveal that truth, and he braced himself for what lay ahead, aware the next few hours might reshape everything he thought he knew about success. With a final look at Mia, as she enthusiastically colored her rainbow, a single question unfurled within him. Could he protect this sense of wonder while maintaining his grasp on the pressure of the unfolding work demands? The answer felt daunting, and as he ruminated on this, uncertainty danced in his heart. The door to clarity was now cracked open. All he had to do was step through. But as he prepared to take that first step, the reality of the storm he had stirred began to press down with an unsettling weight. Did he truly have what it took to balance both worlds? Or was he merely flirting with disaster that was all too familiar? The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the scribbles and colors that Mia had left behind. The drawings served as a constant reminder of the vital choice he had made last night, where he had positioned his commitments, and to whom. It was a beautifully chaotic collection of rainbows, animals, and vivid abstract patterns that stood as testament to the unfiltered joy of childhood. Just as he took a moment to appreciate Mia's uninhibited creativity, a heavy sigh broke him from his reverie. Angela's words echoed in his mind, triggering a flood of anxiety. The thought of Angela, with her unforgiving deadlines and relentless ambition, loomed like a storm cloud whenever he entered the office. Would she hold his new decision against him? Would she interpret his commitment to family as a lack of professionalism? Despite the familiar dread bubbling within him, there was a flicker of determination sparking anew. He couldn't allow past fears to dictate his present strides. Maybe this was exactly what he needed to confront Angela, not as a subordinate, but as an equal willing to demand a culture shift. He could redefine his role in the office, something that extended beyond the confines of meetings and targets. With a newfound focus, he grabbed his laptop and sat down at the table. The hum of Mia's playful giggles mingled with the cadence of his typing, grounding him further in the reality he was choosing. He drafted an email to Angela, outlining a clear plan for the day's work. He would prioritize her tasks, establish a timeline for completion, and reassure her of his commitment to the project. As he rattled off his ideas, an unsettling thought crept in. Would he truly have enough time today to finish everything he had promised? A calculation snaked through his mind, and he realized that every minute spent with Mia felt worth more than the hours lost in the office. It was a perception shift that he had desperately sought but had failed to grasp until now. But this success wasn't merely professional, it was deeply personal. He wanted to show Amelia that boundaries could be set without sacrificing ambition. He desired to prove to Mia that being responsible didn't mean abandoning creativity. He needed them to understand that he could be a present father without compromising his career, fostering a legacy of balance and resolve. With the email sent, Tony felt a rush of adrenaline. He felt lighter, ready to engage with the world that had once felt so oppressive. The day ahead wasn't going to be easy. There were storm clouds on the horizon, both at work and in his personal thoughts. He could already sense that Angela would challenge him, and perhaps even confront him with his dedication to family. His heart thudded in anticipation. As he put away his laptop, he locked eyes with Mia, who was lost in her world of color and imagination. Would she flourish under the assurance that he and they could have both family and success? A knock at the door broke the trance, and with it came the familiar heaviness of decisions. His phone buzzed, showing a message from Angela. "We need to talk today." The seasoned instinct to prepare for conflict surged within him, but this time was different. He was ringed in resolve. Perhaps today was the day to redefine not just his commitments, but also the way he perceived success. The moment had arrived to fortify the boundaries he wished to create. A confrontation not just with Angela, but also within himself. Taking a steadying breath, Tony ventured to confront the storm he had set in motion, consciously reframing his choices amidst the wrath of opposing forces. With a last glance at Mia's drawing that marveled back at him, he quietly committed to not just survive this conversation with Angela, but to thrive. That it was time to face the fierce winds of professional expectations and carve a new path forward. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready to defend his choices, his family, and perhaps most importantly, the man he aspired to become. Would this confrontation give him the clarity he sought, or would it unravel the fragile balance he had painstakingly built? The answer loomed just beyond his reach. waiting for him to pull it into the light. The office felt colder than usual as Tony stepped in, his resolve tightening with each step toward Angela's office. The walls were adorned with motivational posters, messages invoking endless hustle and relentless ambition. Yet for all their vibrancy, they struck a dissonant chord against the choices he had made just hours earlier. His heart raced. A hollow space where he typically stifled his anxiety now buzzed with purpose. He knocked, but the door swung open to Angela's impatient glare. "You're late." "Sorry," he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I needed to prepare myself for this conversation." Angela crossed her arms, a calculated gesture that signaled her authority. "Let us get straight to it. You sent that email. I need to know what you think you can deliver." Her words felt sharp, yet behind the discomfort lurked an opportunity to establish a new dynamic. "I can assure you my work will not falter," he began, scraping together the professionalism he had cultivated over years. "But I also want to discuss some shifts in how we operate. I believe we can achieve more by respecting work-life balance." Angela's brow furrowed, disbelief palatable in the air between them. "Balance? In this industry? You know how this works, Tony. The cream rises to the top because it's willing to endure more." He inhaled deeply, steadied by memories of Mia and the clarity she brought to his life. "I think we risk burning out our best resources, our people. Productivity doesn't have to sacrifice personal value. I want to discuss flexible deadlines and team collaboration. Are you suggesting we soften our approach?" She shot back. The challenge glinted in her eyes, reminiscent of the corporate warrior he had become too familiar with. "Not soften, transform," he countered, surprise surging within him at his own daring. "I believe the strongest professionals are those who support each other. My priority is not to let personal commitments eclipse my performance, but to allow both worlds to coexist." Angela leaned back in her chair, her expression a mix of intrigue and skepticism. Were his thoughts disruptive enough to spur change? "Interesting perspective, but you're also treading a fine line here," she warned. "You risk being categorized as someone who can't meet expectations. Are you prepared for that? This isn't just about your family, Tony, it's about our entire framework." The weight of her statement clung heavily, yet he felt an unforeseen resolve rise within him. This wasn't simply about him. This was about a shift. Maybe it's time for a new framework, one that considers personal victories as professional assets. Silence filled the room as Angela considered his challenge. Tony's heart hammered. He was dancing on the precipice of risk and transformation, a place he had long avoided. "If you truly believe that, I'll give you one project. Show me this new approach," Angela finally said, the steel in her tone still present but slightly softened. "But if you fail, I won't hesitate to bring back the old expectations." "Understood," he replied, not just agreeing but feeling a part of him ignite with conviction as he walked out, head held high. The day felt lighter despite the burdens it contained. He had crossed an invisible line into a new world, one where hope for change lived alongside the necessity of challenge. Later, as he shared the plan with his team, their feedback ignited a sense of camaraderie he'd only imagined. Collaboration began to flourish organically, and for the first time in a long while, he felt energized. Thoughts of Mia and the fragility of creativity filled the gaps in his strategy, reminding him to celebrate small victories along the way. But as paths converged and possibilities began unfolding, one truth loomed large. A misstep could unravel everything he had started to build. What would happen if Angela decided to counteract his proposal? The tides of corporate dynamics were unpredictable, and he sensed a looming confrontation that could threaten his newfound resolve. Would he summon the courage again when faced with actual opposition? Tony paced through the office, buoyed by the sparks of collaboration ignited in the team meeting. His vision had taken root, and he could feel the collective energy buzzing through the air, a potent mix of optimism and cautious anticipation. Yet, despite the uplifting atmosphere, shadows loomed overhead. Angela's ultimatum nagged at him. The weight of expectation was like a tightening noose, reminding him that every step forward might easily be undone. That he had outlined the plan for the new project, establishing flexible deadlines and encouraging team rituals celebrating small accomplishments. It was a great start, but he knew that execution was where the real challenge lay. In a world hungry for results, he sensed the impending scrutiny, watching and waiting for any sign of weakness. The first task required him to schedule a kickoff meeting, but Tony hesitated. The prospect of framing the conversation excited him, yet he grappled with the anxiety of portraying his values with conviction. After all, he wasn't just selling a project. He was advocating for a philosophy that threatened the status quo. He took a deep breath, envisioning Mia's unwavering support and unwavering faith in his abilities. He grabbed a notepad, scribbling down points to articulate his vision clearly. As he moved closer to the meeting, self-doubt rose like a tide. What if he failed to convince the team? What if Angela's judgment clouded their acceptance of this new direction? He stifled the worries, focusing instead on what this transformation could mean for the group and himself. Gathering everyone in the conference room, he initiated the meeting with a warm smile, but the flicker of uncertainty in his gut remained. Thank you for coming together. I'm excited to kick off our new project with a focus on how we can enhance our productivity while respecting our personal lives, he began. Leaning into the collective energy in the room as he articulated his vision, the team sat up, interest sparking in their eyes. They engaged enthusiastically, tossing ideas around, and for the first time, the room felt vibrant with potential. Yet Tony still couldn't shake the tightening sensation in his chest, an innate reminder of the precariousness of their situation. Halfway through the meeting, someone raised a concern. But Tony, how do we ensure accountability with flexible deadlines? What if it leads to slackness? The question threw him off for a moment. Self-doubt swirled again, threatening to drown out his newfound conviction. He took a moment to collect his thoughts, realizing this was a defining moment. I believe accountability comes from trust, he said, his voice steadying. If we trust one another to take ownership of our work, it will naturally drive us toward excellence without the weight of oppressive deadlines. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, bolstering his confidence. Discussions deepened, and solutions unfolded. They designed a framework that included bi-weekly check-ins, where team members would outline their progress and showcase any personal achievements, cultivating a culture of recognition. Just as momentum built, the door swung open. Angela filled the frame, her presence cutting through the charged atmosphere like a thunderstorm heralding rain. Tony's heart sank, awareness faltering as she surveyed the room with an assessing gaze. Let us discuss the specifics, shall we? She prompted, her tone firm. If I remember correctly, you're to report results, not vision. The challenge dripped from her words, a direct confrontation that cast a pall over the lively conversation. Tony's mind raced, caught between fear of failure and the determination to hold his ground. He inhaled slowly, searching for the right words, but he felt the leash tightening again, a chance to either step back or push forward as the tension escalated. He couldn't help but wonder what awaited him in the forthcoming battle for his ideals. Would he have the strength to stand firm against Angela's impending critique? The stakes had grown higher than ever, with results desperately needed in order to keep hope for his transformative vision alive. Would he rise to the occasion, or would fear once again derail his aspirations? Tony felt the weight of Angela's presence as she lingered in the doorway, her assertion hanging heavily in the air. The energy that had filled the room seemed to dissipate, replaced by an uncomfortable tension. He knew he had only a moment to seize control of this encounter. This was not just a discussion about results. It was a confrontation of his vision against the norms he had been raised to accept. Angela, he started, his voice firm despite the tremor beneath. I appreciate the desire for results, but I believe we can achieve both accountability and vision. These initiatives aren't merely a distraction. They're integral to our success. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, and for a heartbeat, he thought he might have caught her off guard. Encouraged, he pressed on. Our flexible deadlines foster creativity and ownership. By giving the team agency, we're cultivating a work culture where everyone feels empowered to produce their best work. Angela crossed her arms, her expression unyielding. Empowered or unfocused? You know where I stand on this, Tony. Results matter if you don't deliver. Your philosophy means nothing. The sting of her words hit him more than he anticipated. A part of him recognized her perspective. She represented traditional corporate reasoning, efficiency, and output, yet he was determined to carve a path that integrated both heart and productivity. Then let's track our progress differently, he proposed, finding a spark of innovation within himself. We can align our vision with measurable goals by setting key performance indicators that reflect both completion and individual contributions. If we do this right, you'll see that flexibility can lead to increased productivity, not the opposite. Angela tilted her head as she considered his words, but her skepticism lingered. And what happens when people take advantage of it? Trust can be misplaced, or it can drive remarkable outcomes, he countered, his pulse racing. I'm willing to take that risk. An environment that fosters trust will hold people accountable more naturally than rigid deadlines ever could. If I can't deliver results in 3 months, you can hold me accountable then. The room had fallen silent, all eyes flitting between Tony and Angela, the palpable tension shaping into a collective anticipation. He could almost hear the clock ticking, marking each second while he awaited her response. It was crucial now. If he faltered, they would return to the traditional ways that he so desperately wanted to disrupt. Finally, Angela spoke, her tone dripping with a mixture of caution and reluctant intrigue. Interesting proposal. Review it in a week. We'll see if you can convince the others that trust equates to productivity. As she turned to leave, a fire ignited inside him. He had made his case, not just for the team, but for himself. There may have been no clear resolution today, but he had set in motion a dynamic that felt different, infused with a sense of purpose he hadn't fully embraced before. As he engaged the team once more, an undercurrent of excitement coursed through the room. Ideas flowed back into the conversation, buoyed by the fresh promise of change. It felt as though they were all standing on the cusp of something significant. But just as he began to chart their next steps, an internal voice whispered, what if he couldn't deliver? What if this time, failure awaited him instead of the triumph he craved? He plastered on a confident smile, yet a part of him quaked with the realization that Angela's words would echo in his mind until he could prove her wrong. As he walked out of the conference room, the resolve to uphold his vision clashed with the gnawing uncertainty about his capability to truly lead this paradigm shift. The weight of his ambition pressed upon him, intertwining with the liberating thrill of possibility. But just as he closed the door behind him, a notification blinked on his phone, a message from Mia, glowing with curiosity. Her words read, "Can we talk later? I have something important to share." It struck him then, within the embrace of uncertainty, that perhaps the greatest revelations were still to come. Would this conversation reveal unexpected truths that could shift everything he thought he knew? The answer awaited in the shadows of their exchange. Tony felt a sense of transformation as he stood in the office, his thoughts swirling around the choices made in the past days. The confrontational dialogue with Angela had ignited a spark within him, a catalyst for the pivotal changes he both desired and needed. The fabric of his professional environment had begun to shift beneath his feet, laying the groundwork for a more compassionate and balanced approach to success and fulfillment. No longer just a cog in the relentless wheel of corporate demands, he recognized the power within him to redefine what productivity could look like. It wasn't merely about meeting deadlines. It was about empowering the people around him, igniting creativity, and acknowledging the individual behind each task. These were not just ideals. They were principles he could weave into the company culture, slowly but surely reshaping the organizational ethos. The emotional battle of navigating his relationship with Angela weighed as heavily as any professional challenge he faced. She represented a traditional mindset steeped in the belief that intensity and competition equated to success. He admired her resolve, but also recognized that her approach had the potential to stifle innovation and morale. As he prepared to meet her again, he felt a tranquil confidence within himself, a reassurance that this was his moment to demonstrate the value of balance in both life and profession. Arriving at the conference table, he looked at his colleagues with renewed resolve. "Let us focus on defining our key performance indicators," he began, feeling the energy rise around him as he framed the conversation with enthusiasm. "By measuring our success not just on output, but on collaboration and individual creativity, we can cultivate an environment where everyone thrives." As the whiteboard filled with ideas, he saw the synergy that arose from shared vision. This pooling of energy fortified his conviction. Together, they charted metrics that celebrated contribution, creativity, and emotional engagement. Tony felt a lift in his own spirit, witnessing firsthand how passion could transform theory into practical application. Amidst the excitement, however, questions loomed. How would Angela react to their innovative framework? Could he sustain this newfound momentum under the scrutiny of traditional expectations? But within those doubts, there was a clarion call for change, a calling that he could no longer ignore. By allowing vulnerability into the workplace, he could embrace creativity and invite accountability without imposing counterproductive stress. The meeting with Angela came the following day, and Tony entered the conference room prepared for the tension that encapsulated their discussions. He laid out the team's input on the project metrics. I want to propose that we evaluate progress not only by output, but also by how we can support each other as strengths. This framework fosters trust, he asserted, aligning his values with the team's direction. Angela's eyes narrowed with skepticism but softened as she listened, reminding him of the tension woven into their interactions. He prepared himself for her onslaught, but a surprising look passed across her face. Curiosity, perhaps. You're suggesting we shift how we assess our productivity? She inquired, her tone gauging the profundity of his claim. Yes, he affirmed, heart racing as the stakes sharpened. Our productivity should reflect collaboration and engagement, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Empowering the team includes granting them autonomy to express themselves authentically. The silence in the room stretched long, punctuated only by the rustling of papers. Tony could feel the growing tension, yet also the shift in ambience. Suddenly, he was met with Angela's contemplative nod. You think people will embrace this approach? I've seen it happen before, he said, emboldened by his own experiences. When trust and creativity intermingle, extraordinary results follow. Just like how Mia's colorful drawings illustrate her joy, those bursts of creativity can take us beyond metrics. The weight of the confrontation morphed in the moment, leading to Angela's reluctant acknowledgement. All right, let us see how the initial phase unfolds. But know this, if results slip, we may have to revisit these practices. Understood, he replied, relief washing over him while setting a firm resolve for the path ahead. As he left the room, he felt a breakthrough in both his work and personal life. He had carved out a foundation where growth and fulfillment could thrive, just as he had hoped for Amelia and Mia. That evening, he found himself engulfed in Mia's vibrant world of colors after a long day, drawing by her side, the bond between them radiating warmth and joy. Mia, these drawings are beautiful, he praised, watching her eyes light up with approval. Darker colors mean sad, right, Dad? She asked innocently, pausing mid-stroke. Sometimes, yes, he admitted, but they can also lead us to brighter hues. Every color tells a story, just like how we work together as a family. In those moments of creativity, he understood a profound truth. No matter the pressures of work, it was essential to nurture the heart of his home, the art of connection and love that threaded their lives together. Tony knew successfully implementing the new framework at work wouldn't solve all their problems. Rather than a finish line, it was a continual journey of growth and adaptation. The balancing act between his professional duties and familial commitments would demand his utmost attention and care. Yet, standing in that moment, his heart swelled with pride, feeling recognized not just as a businessman or partner, but as a sustaining father. In seeking to heal and transform the relationships around him, he was consciously overcoming the weight of expectations and embracing the freedom of vulnerability. Their past struggles had crafted an opportunity for both healing and celebration. The personal accomplishment illuminated his path forward, one where success was intricately woven with love and creativity. Tony felt buoyed by the possibilities ahead. He had not only mended the rift within his family, but also carved a space for humanity in his professional life. This was a path of fulfillment he would continue to nurture, understanding that in celebrating every unique color, the canvas of their lives would shimmer in harmonious beauty. So he chose to embrace every shade life painted, embracing each moment as a testament to growth and connection. You need to subscribe now to keep up with these transformational journeys that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support stories that resonate with your aspirations. Comment below with your thoughts on Tony's choices and what you believe may come next. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to find this light of resilience in their own lives.